Does the body protect emotional, physical, and spiritual well being? Always. In Lisa's case, it wasn't until she recognized this that her life started to take a seeming turn for the worst. A military dependent as a child, a divorce due to addiction and dysfunction, and dealing with discrimination in her work life led Lisa to traverse her healing journey and discover who she truly is and turned it into a life of guiding others. She also wrote a book, The Truth About Trauma: Break Patterns, Build Resilience, Restore Joy.
Welcome to Awakening Soul Divinity, your sacred space for deep healing and transformation. Listen to inspiring conversations with healing experts, spiritual guides, and teachers as we explore ancient wisdom, modern healing, and powerful stories of change. I'll also share practical insights from my personal journey, from spiritual crisis to inner purpose. Whether you're seeking to overcome anxiety, embrace your true nature, or awaken your higher self, this podcast offers guidance to help you transform your life and elevate collective consciousness.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so excited that you decided to join me on this journey, and we'll just get started.
All right.
Okay. So, actually, the first question, we've talked about this a few times, so this one should be an easy one. Can you briefly share a trauma, challenging experience, or catalyst that led you to the path you're on today and brought you to writing your book, The Truth About Trauma?
Wow. Yes, I can. I think for me, what started as what I thought was my personality, like a little edgy, I found out were trauma responses. And I started by going to this course um, to learn things to take to help other people. And when I got there, what I realized is, oh, I have experienced trauma. I took ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. They gave us that quiz and I failed it. That was a major landmark for me. Like, oh my goodness, I went through a divorce. That was a oh my goodness moment. And then the discrimination that you talked about was an oh my goodness moment. But in the cycle of all of those things, my personality, the way I closed down, had
Mhm.
hard times with relationships, those were the things that got my attention and led me to seek healing. And if you would say breadcrumbs, and every little breadcrumb, I was seeking healing, which led to this.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that, because breadcrumbs can be a good thing or not a good thing. The not a good thing is the breadcrumbs that other people feed us who have been through trauma. The good thing is like it's like a what do you call those, where you get the clues and you go to the next clue and you find whatever you need to find. That sounds, because I had a similar experience where every time I got another clue, it would lead me into my next experience or healing experience or dark night of the soul. So, yeah. And I had a question for you about trauma in and of itself before we even get started. I believe personally, and I don't like generalizing. However, as humans on this earth plane, I feel like everyone has experienced some sort of trauma. Like every time I look out, there are even people who are seemingly gurus and know what, they've had this journey, and you can see how they are now compared to where they were before. They still had trauma. Can you touch on that a little bit real quick?
I'm glad you brought that up because the definition of trauma, like I always thought trauma was like if you had a horrible accident or you've been to
Mm,
war or your house was on fire. Trauma is your body's reaction to protecting you.
mhm.
That's simply it. From a threat or seemingly a threat. And when your body's protecting you, our bodies are so amazing. They do so much to help us. They protect that trauma and put it in a neural net, and it hides in your body. And if anything comes close to it, it reacts just like that time. So trauma, we're all experiencing it.
Mhm.
Climate trauma, right? We're experiencing daily trauma, family system trauma, political trauma. I mean, it's happening. We're swimming in it. It's in the water.
Right, right. And in that, how many people in the world do you estimate have experienced a traumatic event? Because I know I read somewhere, according to the World Health Organization, or maybe you and I talked about it, about 70% of people have experienced a traumatic event. Is that misleading, or what's up with that?
I think it's a little misleading because let's just say you go to work, you're on your way to work and you spill coffee on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a traumatic experience to your body.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I'm heightened, and I learned this from Deepak Chopra meditation, like if I'm heightened,
Mm-hmm.
like I left the coffee pot on, but I don't know if it's, am I going to burn down the house? I'm scared. All of a sudden, my body is in a response. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I find out that the coffee pot is not on, I
Mm-hmm.
don't tell my body everything's okay. So
Mm-hmm.
what was happening for me is cycles and cycles and cycles of heightened, 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 instead of saying, "Oh, fear is not real. That did not happen. Everything is okay." And I think that many of us, probably everyone, has those experiences, but yet doesn't do the healing part that comes next side when it's not realized.
Yeah, and because I took a trauma informed course when I as a transformational coach, and one of the things that I learned in this course was that it's like a circle. Your stress response, which is what you're referring to, fight, flight, freeze, and now the kind of threw fawn in there somewhere, and I've done
And
them all.
flock.
So there's more. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's almost like this loop that where the nervous system like gets stuck because we don't know what to do in response to this trauma, whatever it is, even if it's like what they would call a micro trauma, something like the coffee pot, that's a micro trauma, right?
Mhm.
And so there's this gap here, and that gap stays open until we are able to come back to it and focus on it and heal or be aware of it and then heal that gap and close the gap. And that goes into all these neuro brain things. I mean, you tell me, because I know you've studied more of this than I have. Mine's more of like a of an inquisitive lifelong journey of understanding it for myself. But it's like the stress response, people don't realize, and we're never really taught that the stress response, the anxiety, the depression, all these things that are consistent, causing in our lives and causing hypervigilance and all this stuff are part of who we are. And we aren't taught how to, I mean, we're going to go through it because we're humans, but we're not taught how to close it or get out of it, because what we are taught is how not to feel our feelings and emotions. And that's part of that system. If I'm saying that
Absolutely.
right. So, can you dig a little deeper into the stress response piece of this process?
Oh,
In
absolutely.
thanks.
So where I went to study, I went to the Center for Justice and Peace Building, and I took a course called STAR, the Strategies for Trauma Awareness and Resilience, which was a response to 9/11. It
Mm,
was a bunch of peace builders got together and created this model. And this model was like when a trauma happens, your body is either acting in or acting out. Now, somewhat like attacking other people would be acting it out.
mhm.
Acting in would be something like your physical response, the freeze, the flock, the fawn, maybe the panic, and which manifest into depression, other things that are inside.
Mhm.
But it's an infinity sign. It runs from one to the other.
Yeah.
And unless you are aware, you can't break free. Well, how
Mhm.
do you break free? Being aware. And one of the things that I love the most is having a healing community of support. I say a healing community, being aware of what's going on in your body. So the other part is that our body is always, nervous system is always working up and down, resilient zone
Mhm.
until something is too much, too fast, too hard, and then we're out of our window of tolerance,
Mhm.
the window that we're like every day grocery shopping. Oh my God, you pulled in front of me, all the things, and then we're out, and we're either like you had just mentioned, numbing out, or you are completely on the other side of that zone,
Mhm.
right? And so being cautious of, hey, where am I? Am I in the resilient zone? Am I totally out of it, what they call the window of tolerance? Or am I on the cycles, which they call in STAR the cycles of violence? I'm going from one to the other,
Mhm.
acting in or acting out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, well, what I'm trying to do here is kind of build on what exactly trauma is, how it works in the body, all this stuff, and you've got a lot of background in that. And the whole point of this podcast is to heal from trauma and to show people how people like you who have gone through trauma have worked through it and come out on the other side. I've done this process, and I want to also share that with other people because the more people see that, the more people who have done this who come out on the other side to help other people, I feel like it will help them become aware. There's the awareness right there. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, this person went through this and I'm going through this, but what did they do to heal? And it worked for them, so maybe I can also be a part of that. What I'd like to add also, and ask, is the hypervigilance piece of it, because people like my experience of working through trauma was uh, there's a catchphrase out there called complex PTSD, which basically states that it's trauma after trauma, trauma after trauma after trauma, and you get to a point where your nervous system just cannot function, so you go into this hypervigilance state. Can you share with our audience what that looks like? Because a lot of people don't even realize they're in it. They just know that I mean, when something, the next thing comes and the next thing comes and the next thing comes, it's like, and we have a lot of that going on right now, so it's
Right.
gonna feel not great when these things are going on. And also explain that, the hypervigilance, and then what we can do to either settle, alleviate, or, work through, go to the other side of that.
Right.
What does
Where
that
is the
look?
relief,
Where's
right?
the relief? Yeah. What does that look like?
In the context of the two things that I just talked about, is that the hypervigilance or the numbing,
Mm-hmm.
there's just two sides of every coin, can come in many different ways. It could come by overscheduling. You're overscheduling yourself. You're making sure that every minute is scheduled. It can come by policing other people, by actually, oh, that person is doing this or that. You're always focused on others and what they're doing or not doing. It
Mm-hmm.
can come in us versus them narrative, that where this is us and this is them. That's the acting out. It can come in hyper focusing on minute details. And like in your house, like, the cabinet has to be this way at all times. I find myself like, now the house is going to be perfectly clean
Uh-huh.
because those are things I can control. And either any of those things out of context are fine. You're thinking like there's nothing wrong with me, which is an excellent name of a book by Sherry Hubbard. Um, and when you pause for a second and look at how much you are doing those things, you can see like what is behind, being curious what's behind this.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what I noticed is that I really tried to control my environment. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a mother, I have kids. Like, you need to control your environment. And there was something missing.
Mm-hmm.
It was my joy. It was my happiness. It was my peace. My mind kept cycling all the time. And I had no idea that I thought all people were like that.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm agreeing with that 100%. And I'd like to also add from my own experience, there's this process that we go through that I went through where I recognize that whenever I try to control my external environment, it was because I was feeling so out of control within because nothing I did in the process of my life, whatever experiences I was having for the most part, it was like someone else was holding the the strings with me, like I couldn't make my own decisions. If I got a choice to make, it was not my choice, it wasn't my anything. It was like, wait a minute, I have no control of this. And what I learned was this thing called locus of control, where really, I mean, as far as you extend your arm out, that's how much control we have over our life. So as long as we can pull that within and recognize that, if my reactions inside don't get overwhelmed by the other things that are going out in the world, then I am able to control how I react or respond to something. And years, let me tell you, it took me years to do this. And it was like a lot of breath work, a lot of putting my hands on my heart and talking to my inner child. It was a lot of that stuff because when we feel out of control, which again, there's a lot of that going on, the control starts within. Everything starts within, right?
It does. It totally does. And in the book, The Truth About Trauma, I start with there's three levels of healing process. The body is the first level, realizing that I need to have a relationship with my body. I need to calm my mind so that I can hear what my body is telling me. And if my body tells me something like you're hungry, like to listen, you need to go to the bathroom, to listen. And I had to learn those things. And the first thing I did was I did meditation. Some people said, well, I couldn't do meditation. Well, I'll tell you how I did it. I did it driving to work. So I didn't have my eyes closed, so no need to be worried there. But I
Okay.
just listened deeply to the meditation. That's how I entered meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Nature walks,
Yes.
walking in nature, putting your feet on the soil. These are ways to connect. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that helped me to open the door to get to know my body and to listen to what was happening with. That was the first step, is knowing what trauma was and what trauma
Yeah.
wasn't, and to listen to my body.
Well, the body piece of it is so important. And that was something I discovered also because we've been taught to be disconnected from our body. It's like mind, 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 thinking, 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 action, action, whatever's going on in the world we're all up here. And when we disconnect from our bodies, then our bodies are talking to us all the time and telling us what we need to do, who we need to watch out for. I mean, you walk into a room and well, maybe not everybody does this, but I think everybody does this. You can feel the energy in the room and who do you want to stay away from and who you want. That's your body talking to you. That is not your mind telling you that. So the body to me was huge in my healing process because my entire life until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, well, 2021, so 4 years ago, was all about cognitive. It was cognitive therapy. It's thinking my way through things. It's figuring things out. And I remember one day I received an email that put me over the edge. And it's like I've had 30 years of cognitive therapy. So I'm observing myself freaking out, watching my nervous system. I'm walking around, because of this email, right? I'm like, wait, what? What's going on here? So my body was reacting to the email. My mind was like watching, and nothing was telling me that everything was going to be okay except someone who was
Hmm.
sitting in the room telling me that because I needed that in that moment. But
Right.
that's when I discovered somatic therapy, or somatic work that led into the body and being able to we don't want to feel our bodies because most of us feel like if it's going to hurt. Well, yeah, it's going to hurt, and it's also our guidance system. It's like our GPS, so we need the body to
Yeah.
That's why we have a body where we walk around just the head, you know?
Yeah, right. And I think that we've been taught to concentrate on our cognitive. And that's what
Mhm.
I love about your work is that we have to center ourselves. This is like a holistic machine that we need our bodies to help us with our intuition,
Mhm.
to help
We
us,
all have, by the way. I'm
which
just.
we all have. And so connecting with the body,
Mhm.
what I find is just when you pull that thread, the littlest thread, it just leads someplace else.
Yeah.
So I think willingness is the key here to
Mhm.
connect with the body. And once you connect with the body, the next level is your mind patterns. What's going on in your head? What's coming through there? If it's telling you that you're ugly and you're fat and you're this and that, then that's not you.
And it's
The
not
only
true.
That's not you.
That's right.
That's not your voice.
Mhm.
If it's not saying you're beautiful, look at you, I love you, then it is not you. And that was a eye opener to me. I was like, what?
Mhm.
And then I asked myself, whose voice is this?
Mm.
And diminish that voice.
And
Voices,
voices.
voices.
Whose voices are they if they're not yours? Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, I think some of them come from family patterns.
Mhm.
Right? It can be a mom or a dad or an uncle. Children are just so pliable. They're just so perfect.
Mhm.
And when we put things into them, and if you see them, they're bright-eyed and happy to be here and have so much joy, and the world just gives them things. And sometimes it can come from past lives or past generations.
Mhm. That's a
And
big one.
hmm
Yeah.
Like, if your parents lived through the Depression, have experienced extreme abuse in their lives, all of those things come forward and those messages come forward. I mentioned Sherry Hubert before. She has a book called There Is Nothing Wrong with You. It's one of the first places I started.
Nothing wrong with you. Okay.
There's Nothing Wrong with You. And it's a book about self-hatred and compassion for yourself, and it's written beautifully,
Mhm.
like almost like a cartoon.
Mm.
But she had to write that. She's a Zen Buddhist monk to help the people she was helping to be in contact with themselves before she could do the work.
Interesting. Interesting. And that there's a lot of that coming out. Like I don't remember how long ago it was, but Oprah Winfrey and the psychiatrist, I don't remember his name.
Bruce Perry.
Perry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was it something it's there's what happened to you, not what's
Hmm.
with you. So you reminded me of that when we were talking, and that was one of the books that really helped me to understand that there wasn't anything like when you get told over and over and over and over and over and over again that there's something wrong with
Wrong
you,
with you.
you
Hmm.
believe that, and it's like there isn't because there's a pure light that is within us, and it's
All
our
of us.
all of
Hmm.
us, and it's our job on this planet to uncover that light, which in turn, once you uncover that truth of who you are, it opens the love. It opens the love within you first, and then you don't have to do anything. It's like your life just naturally takes itself in the direction that you want it to go in. And it took me so long to figure that out. And that's why we get to heal that. So that voice or voices, from school. I had a second grade teacher who called me a brat. You know, guess what I was going through when I was second grade? I don't even remember how old I was at this point. My parents were getting divorced. Hello, a teacher calling a child a brat, it slams that right into the psyche, into the nervous system, into everything. And I lived with that throughout my entire life until a few years ago when I was working on, doing this work deeply. And like you said, children they're like sponges. You can't say these things to them. They will believe everything and everything, and they watch. everything. And it's like they will soak in everything that's going on outside of them. And if you're their parent or guardian or whatever, you get to be the person that you want them to be. You can't tell them how to do that. And you get to share this and be there to support them so they don't get into this, you know, lifelong healing journey circumstance that a lot of us have been going through. I mean, that's just, it's a lot. I do see that the children now are coming in that are a lot more aware than we were. Like they have an awareness at their age that we're starting to see. So there's a good sign there. But for parents who have kids like that, hold that space for them. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just this, we need them. They're our future.
Yeah.
So,
Give them what you didn't have.
right.
And, through circumstances and historical issues or whatever, we are where we are. And
Mhm.
at the same time, we want to hold space for the healing. It's almost like the crust that's on top. We just want to take all that stuff off so that we can find out exactly like that you just said so eloquently, the light inside.
Mhm.
And I think what I try to do here in this book is walk along with the reader. And the difference is I'm sharing what I've gone through. I'm
Mhm.
sharing experiences to normalize, like, hey, you're not alone. If you've been abused, I've been abused. If you've been divorced, I've been divorced. If you've been mistreated, I've been mistreated. And these are some of the things that I did to, like, every one of them led me to a little more light. So I kept chasing it.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. And you said you had one more. Yeah, there are three of them. There are three
And the last
last.
level
Yeah.
is the reconnection
Very
and
nice.
the spirit and soul,
Yeah.
which is
That's what.
once you get past these other things that you're just like, we've been throwing in the back of the station wagon all of our lives. We hit the brakes and they all come forward. What you'll see is the light that will come. And
Yeah.
who knows what the world has for you to do. Like, look, I mean, you're an example. Like, who knows what's going to happen? I
Yeah.
would have never thought I was going to write a book like this ever. But as I continued to grow, and I had lots of mentors along the way, people would just show up in my life for a minute and they would give me these great gifts. And then someone else would show up. And
Mhm.
I just said yes. The doors were opening and I said yes.
Yeah. And you know what? Here's something interesting to that because I've had that and I've also had the opportunity mentors. Those situations and people who came into my life to show me my truth.
Mm.
Those are the situations that weren't so wonderful, that weren't so peaceful, that weren't so great. You know, those are also opportunities to find that truth about who you are. So you need that, like the dichotomy, the light, the dark, you know, all that stuff. Because when someone, here's one of the things I learned was, you know, one of my biggest things I wanted in my life was peace. So they say, be careful what you ask for, right? So I'm asking, I want peace, I want peace, I want peace, I want peace. So guess what? Guess what Caroline got her whole life until she figured out that it wasn't out there? She got chaos, right?
Mm.
So chaos happened a lot. And when I started to, with people who helped me and guided me, like you're talking about, when I started to recognize this and they held up a mirror for me, I started to see that there's peace doesn't happen out there. I'm looking for something or desperately searching for something or whatever that will bring me something that I already have in here. The peace, the joy, the love we mentioned before. So I'm really glad that you make that process or share that process in your book and then bring it to the last, like it's almost like an integration to me. It takes all of that and it becomes you, you know, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, that's a very good description. I just like one little thing at a time. And there's so many different options. It's like a workbook. It's like a journal, self-care tools
Yeah.
after every chapter, meditations, rituals, affirmations. You get to pick and choose what calls to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then along side, I am sharing experiences. We don't talk about these things. That's what's so great about your podcast is like, we don't talk about this. We invisibilize it. We don't want to talk about it. We
Yeah.
just want to keep on moving.
Yeah.
And that's got me to the point where I was like,
We can talk about
I
it.
got high blood pressure. I was
Yeah.
like, what is going on with my
The high
body?
blood pressure was you holding that inside of you and not talking about it, not bringing it out and not sharing it. But that's the thing that's so crazy. People want to do their thing in life and they want to go through this tunnel and they want to ignore their feelings and do all this stuff. But it's like, and I say this all the time. I have a video on my other YouTube channel where I'm holding the ball, a rubber ball underneath the ocean in the ocean, and you can't do it. It's going to pop up. That's how emotions work. When you're trying to hold and push and shove your emotions down inside of you, they're going to come out in some way. They're either going to come blasting this way, they're going to blast at somebody else. You had mentioned that earlier. You can't hold your emotions in. They're not meant to be held inside of you.
Right.
So that's what's so important about uh I just believe that's why we're here. We're here to work through that stuff, connect. There's no spiritual bypassing involved in any of this. You can't just go right to, you create heaven by healing your humanity. That's how I see this work. It's not something where you can just go, oh, I'm free and I'm in heaven. You're not in heaven. Heaven's created here. Bliss, joy. We could go over and over in that stuff, and I appreciate what you do because this is my thing. This is my jam. So I just love uh you and we've already had a long conversation offline, but it's like there's so much that people get to recognize that they're not interested in yet. But I feel like with everything that's happening in the world right now, that this interest or desperation or like help, I need to get out of this. I don't want to feel scared anymore. I don't want to do that, all these things. So in that, with everything going on in the world, I'd like for you to share, aside from this amazing book that you have, how your personal journey has shaped that work that you're doing now to support others, and kind of give an idea of some of the work that you're doing besides writing and screenwriting or playwriting, or which I watched your movie, by the way, it was pretty cool. It was like, I think I mentioned that to you, but I was like, I was tearing up at the end of it because it's like there's that awareness piece of it that showed up at the very end. And we could get into that in a moment if we want, if we go there. But um I just want people to know, what you're doing so they understand you've been through it. Now what are you doing to share with other people besides the book? Because the book is like more like a guidance system for the work that you're doing, I would think. Is that true? And
That's true. I mean, that's very true. Some of the things that, first of all, I'm any person that's listening right now because I wouldn't have imagined myself doing any of the things that I'm going to share with you. And you've mentioned the playwriting, you've mentioned making a film. And what also has happened is the advocacy for conservation and for the climate. So I am on the board of the Alaska Wilderness League to
wow.
protect the lands, the federal lands in Alaska, which I have been to the Arctic, to the Brooks. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And to help protect the Gutchin people who live, the caribou people who live in the Arctic, in the refuge, to protect them.
Hmm.
And to protect them because there's a little piece of land called, the government calls it 1002, and the Gutchin people call it the place where life begins. So you could feel the difference of those two, of not having, and that's where the caribou breed. And
Huh.
these are the caribou people who live on the caribou.
Now this is in Alaska?
This is in Alaska.
Where in Alaska is
It's
this?
on the northern coastal plain in Alaska,
Northern.
in the refuge. Yes,
Interesting. Yeah, because my son and I in March went to Fairbanks,
yes.
and we took a little trip to Denali, and that was like people you if you, especially if you live in the city. I can't even I tear up when I think about this. I mean, it's not just the excitement about seeing Denali and how big it is, and it just
Right.
happened to be not cloudy or whatever, but to go with what you just mentioned about that, it's like there is such a calm, quiet peace when
Yes.
walking through that area that you do not get in the city, which, oh, by the way, affects your nervous system too. So to preserve that, we can't, and I'm going to use this, we can't survive this life in a city. It doesn't work that way. It does, our bodies can't handle that. But when we get out into nature, into that kind of area, it's like a whole different, it's so quiet. And it, for me, it's wonderful. Some people can't handle that much quiet, but
Right.
maybe you need to figure out how to get used to that, because that's like, wow,
Precious. I
it is
mean, so
precious.
you understand
I
what I'm
do.
saying. You
I
do.
do. I do. And I wasn't up in that area where it's probably even more remote than where I was, because obviously you've got tourists that go into the area where I was. But man, I mean, I don't
Pretty
know.
special. Pretty
Yeah.
special. So that's one thing by doing this work with myself that led me to be able to work in conservation space and help protect those people and those lands.
Wow. Thank
Um,
you.
Yeah, it is my honor. Also, this work has led me to being a life coach. I started out by being life coached, conscious freedom life coaching. And because of the healing I experienced, my coach asked me if I wanted to be a coach. I didn't have that on my list of things to do. I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Sometimes it
And
works
so
that way. Yeah.
so I became a life coach. And then through doing the work around racial healing,
Mhm.
um, and writing work around a model of healing, race for all people, I didn't expect that to happen. That came out of nowhere or was given to me as a gift from my healing. And as a response to that and the film, in Portland, Oregon, I started a chapter of Coming to the Table. And Coming to the Table is a racial reconciliation group. It was founded by someone, Tom DeWolf in Oregon, when he found out that his family were enslavers. It's coming to peace with
Mm.
and moving past slavery. And so it's a national group, and people wanted a place to go to talk about this. Not all people do, but some people did. And so that also is something that I've worked on, as well as wherever the universe calls me. I became a medium. I didn't expect that, nor did I know what that was. And I'm a Reiki practitioner.
Yeah.
I have taken, Japanese Gundai Reiki from a teacher, 1 and 2. I can do remote healing. I did not expect that.
Mhm.
So the universe just has so much in store for me
Mhm.
by me doing my own healing.
Mhm. Mhm. And what's so interesting about that, I'm glad you brought that up, because as we clear out our nervous system and as we do our healing work, um, that already was inside of you, but you just weren't aware, you weren't awake to it yet. And every time you healed, it gave that clear channel for the universe to say, hey, there's your gift. This is what you get to use now. Huh, here you go. Whether you choose it or not to go with it, that's one thing, but there's such a power in clearing that nervous system out, right? There is something I'd like for you to kind of touch on a little bit more deeply, because we are having this going on now. uh when you were talking about, I love that coming to the table piece of it, with the fact that his family, they were slave owners, correct?
Hmm.
So I'm a big fan of healing ancestral trauma for myself. My ancestral trauma was Holocaust trauma. So, and my mother, she and my grandparents were that group that fled Czechoslovakia in 1939 when World War II started. So that's, there's more to it. I'm not going to get into that piece of it yet. But when my mother came to the United States, when she married my dad, um, I don't think she did it while she was married to him, it was probably afterwards, but she started to recognize what the Native Americans in this country were going through, another level of ancestral trauma, right? And so she started doing work with the Native Americans. And it was her pain. This is what I'm starting to see now. It was her pain that drove her to help people who have gone through something similar with this ancestral trauma. Now, we've had that in this country since the get-go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this coming up right now, and there's so much information that I'm learning about, about Black people, about Native Americans, about my generation, about all these different things that have gone on for who knows how long these things have gone back. I want to talk or have you share a little bit about your feelings on how it doesn't feel good that these things are coming up. And at the same time, I feel like it's an opportunity for healing based off of what you said about this group, because it gives, like I've heard of people who were Gestapo and that sort of thing coming together with or families who were ancestors who were down from that lineage coming together with people whose families were in the concentration camps and doing the same thing. What does that look like for healing trauma on a wide scale? I mean, is this just start talking? I'm just
That's so great. Absolutely, because we know that energy that is not healed is transferred.
right.
And I think we're in that time right now that what we're experiencing is a transferring of harm continually spiraling throughout our nation and with these many communities who have been harmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Dr. King was really clear about not in his principles of nonviolence is he says we don't hate our oppressor. What we want is we want to transform that energy into love. We want to transform. So when these harms are impacting us generationally, historically, culturally, and we have never stopped to heal any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So slavery in our country happened. I would say the Black community has been harmed, has created wealth for other people, and has not stopped to heal.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my healing has been the racialized healing of ancestors back. For me to heal and walk forward, to lean into those conversations about race, coming to the table does that, as well as you do your own healing. So there's linked descendants in coming to the table where you find people who may not look like you, who may even, like what my friend from Portland, their family may have owned your family. And we come together, just like you discussed. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to do that in this country.
Well,
We have
yes.
to.
Well, and something that really boggles my mind is that, and it isn't, it's just a thought. I'm not the type I plant the seed and let people go with whatever is in there. I'm not the fighter. I'm like the space holder, right? But what I notice is that there's a phrase in what is the name? Lakota. It's Matak. Hopefully, I say this right. I always mess it up. Mitakuye Oyasin. Mitakuye Oyasin. It means we are all one. And technically, from my understanding, in one way or the other, we all stem back to originally we stem back to Africa. All of us do. I think it was all, is that, I'm not 100% sure of that, but it would
That
make
is true.
sense. It would make sense to me. So if that's the case, we have a lot of self-hate going on because there are so many things that have mixed in together, like even like you're saying, owners of plantations or whatever Tell me they didn't sleep with the people that they were enslaving. Tell me that didn't happen. It's
But
like,
we know it did happen.
I know. Well, that's why I know. That's why I'm like, wait, okay, because I have this brain, this analytical brain that's like that always tries to piece things together, and sometimes it can be annoying, and sometimes it can be like give me aha moments. So we're interrelated in that way anyway, and it's like where is the point where we start to recognize this is my biggest thing when there's something going on outside of us, instead of getting angry, instead of fighting back, instead of doing all these types of things, which we're bound to do because it's affecting us, right? Where is that point where we can just go, and start to look at it maybe differently or research it or think about it differently? Not everybody can do that. I understand that. That's my lucky brain, whatever that gets that. But there's a point, even for people who really don't understand this stuff, where you can just go, wait, huh? Because there's something in there. That's my wish for the world.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. Like this work is not head work. We've tried to do it that way. We've
Right.
tried to teach, and that's not what happened. And what happened with my racialized work is what I found is that I was missing something. I
Mm-hmm.
was missing who I was, where I came from, whose I was. And because I was missing that, I was looking at the world through this lens that didn't empower me. And the other thing is that we only have one job to do, is to care for one another, and we can't seem to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is heart work.
Yes.
This is heart work. It's not head work. And when we put our hearts in places, if you're not doing okay, I'm not doing okay. That's oneness. And my first book is that's the focus of it. Love and Light, a guide to peace and oneness. We're all one. As soon as we get there, it will help us to walk forward together, together. And that's what coming to the table does. It
Yes.
is coming to the table together,
Okay.
together.
You know, thank you for bringing that up, because in looping back around to the trauma piece, though, like we're coming full circle, because in order to know who we are and uncover the truth of who we are, the love, the light, the joy, the peace, all of that stuff, we need to heal. We get to heal. It's like that's why we're here, because we're being taught how we are one and how we're connected, whether it's with the environment or whether it's with each other, as humans, or whether it's with the universe. We're all connected in some way. I will say it again. I say it all the time. We all bleed red. It's the same color. It's no different. So I feel like that healing is so vital, so vital. Personal healing, inner
It
healing.
has to, yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
It
It
has to
totally
start.
is. And
Yeah.
the thing about like why I wrote the truth about trauma and why I didn't write about racial trauma is because what I found out in my own healing is that I needed to go back and heal all my other traumas first
Yeah. Yep.
until can focus on gender, ableism, before I could focus on anything. I
Mhm.
needed to go back and look at that stuff that's in the back of the station wagon.
Yeah.
And I learned that in life coaching. I didn't like it. I did not like it because I want to pull the shades down and act like it doesn't exist.
Right. And when you have a really good coach, oh, by the way, it's like we're not just peeling it. We're just kind of expanding something where when you peek in, you're like,
I didn't want to look in
I
there.
get it. I get it. And then, but the thing is that it causes more pain to yourself to not look. And then it causes more pain to others when you don't look.
Right.
So
It's
look,
a cycle,
it
right?
is.
That's a cycle of violence right there. It's a
Yes.
cycle.
Yes. And that's not why we're here. I'm
No,
saying. Mm-mm.
I am so glad that I was curious enough. I was in enough pain when I went to Conscious Freedom Life Coaching. And I remember that day. And so I just want to encourage people, like, do not be dismayed. You are not alone.
Mm-mm.
It's one of the things that I'm creating as a community, just like this community. All the communities can be a network, help each other. You are not alone. And I just went home and got in the bed and pulled the covers over my head because I could not believe what I had experienced and ignored to
Mhm.
survive, to survive.
There's one more thing I wanted to ask you because I wanted to pull it from my own personal experiences with trauma. Um, this is this has been something, maybe you can answer this question. It's been something that's been nudging me for a while. I began to see that some people had an easier time working on their trauma and healing it and letting it go than I did. And I've seen other people similar to me, and I've seen other people similar to, you know, let me give an example. Oprah Winfrey, she went through a heck of a childhood. You know, her grandmother, though, was her mentor. Her grandmother was there to support her. Not everyone has that. So it makes me wonder sometimes, like, it took me, it just seems like they go through it more quickly. Like it took me over 30 years of working on understanding what was going on before I learned how to release it from my nervous system. Can you share some information on what that might be? Like, is it, what's the importance of having a mentor? Is that what causes that? And how can we, if we've never had a mentor, what is it that we can do to still do the work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that one thing is that we can't compare our insides to other people's outsides. We have no idea what they're going through, right?
Right.
It may look easy from where we're sitting, and man, that is something that I like to do is I like to compare and despair.
Mhm.
And we really can't compare, but there's something that the universe puts people in our lives to help us. And one of the first things is that to look for the good people. And Antoine Fisher said that when he after his film when we saw it years ago is he and there's people extreme trauma that he lived with, childhood trauma, and someone asked him, how'd you make it? And he said, I learned at a young age the difference between good people and bad people for me. And using that intuition a little bit and going toward people who are going to help you.
Mhm.
And part of the cycles of violence is that our lenses are a little tweaked and we see the not so good people as good people because, your horns fit in my head and, we can do the dance together.
Oh my
Um,
God. Yeah.
that's that first kind of discernment. And
Uh-huh.
I believe if you're willing, the universe will continue to show you. But your podcast is an example of looking like you are a mentor to people. But those mentors, you can feel it in your heart if it's the right person.
Hmm.
And I always have someone that I call and ask, like, what do you think about this? I try not to go at it alone. I have many different people in my life, but I think you are a icon or one of those places where people can seek mentorship, can listen to people who come on your podcast, and that can open up like safety for people.
Hmm.
Because if with my old lens, I would not pick people who were good for me.
Hmm.
I think that mentorship is important and being in healthy communities, communities where you're not invisibilized, in communities where when you say something that people are listening to you, they're giving you comfort and attunement. They're co-regulating your nervous system with you instead of saying that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why do you think that? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's absolutely, I realize, I get it. I've worked through it. For someone who is still kind of like, wait, I'm out here hanging off a tree limb and I don't know how to find these people. How do I find these people? Because right now, in a lot of ways, Facebook and Instagram and all that is not, can be a way to find people, but then there's also those other people who are mixing in, who are
Right.
kind of throwing out that negative energy or whatever. And it's challenging to trust
It,
nowadays. So what would you suggest people do as far as that goes?
this is what I would suggest. I'm going to tell you what I did. I first started with meditations, right? They're guided meditations. And the one I'll mention is the Deepak Chopra stress meditation that's free on YouTube. And I listened to those meditations was the first thing that I did. I started doing things that I thought were good for my body, like taking a walk. I started listening to books on tape that I enjoyed. I started doing things like that. And that helped me to get in a space where I was attracting better.
Mm-hmm.
I would say definitely get the book, The Truth About Trauma, because it is like a step by step walk. And a journal, I say get a friend to walk through it with you. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to walk together. And I also say get the book, There's Nothing Wrong with You by Sherry Huber.
Okay.
And then that book, the first 2 pages are going to be, I'm going to prepare you, words that people say to kids. I had to stop and take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to your breath. How are you breathing? If your breathing is getting shallowed, you're being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to pay attention to your, that's the first thing, pay attention to your breath, and then learn to tell yourself, breathe, and then do the proximity of what you need. Those are the first beginning steps. And I'd say check in with us. Check in with me, check in with Carolyn, uh, send us a note. There's communities that are being formed to help support you.
Mm-hmm.
I care about you, Carolyn cares about you, and I'd say let us be the thread.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna cry. That's why I didn't say anything right away. I was like, okay, let me work through this thing. And
That's
you're right.
beautiful.
You're absolutely right. It's like once you finally clear at least the baseline of this nervous system, these things that are stuck inside of you, once you clear that out, you're willing, it's almost like you're willing to give yourself a second chance. Like you're willing to not only clear that out and attract, but to also recognize the right people, to recognize the people that are going to not save you, because that's not
No,
what their job is. What their job is to do is to give you in the moment, especially if it's a crisis management situation, they give you the resources, or they support you until you can stand. That's how I've always been. It's like, I will hold your faith, I will hold your space, I will hold everything until you can start recognizing it. And when you
hmm
recognize it, you can be such the powerful person that you are, that you can't recognize right now. You can't see that. I mean, it's
right.
challenging to see that right now. I don't like using the word can't, but I threw that out. All right. Anyway, but the thing is that that's so incredibly beautiful, because I think that people feel, at least I did, that there was no way out. You
It
know,
feels like that.
it
It feels
does.
like there's not a way out. And the mustard seed on the book is our mustard seeds. You only need just a small pinhole of hope, just the littlest bit. And I'd like to say for those who are veterans, my friend Chad Brown is a veteran. I know you're a veteran, that there are things for veterans out there too. Chad takes people out to the wilderness. He suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. He has he does Love is King and Soul River, where he takes kids and pairs them with veterans to go out to the Arctic and do things in nature. Warrior to Wilderness takes veterans out in Ohio, takes them out and, lets them be safe in a place with other vets. There are many other things. If you're a vet, just know that you are not alone either. That that's one of the things that I do is that I help support that work because it's important. So if you're a vet, I hear you and I see you.
Yeah, and please understand something as a veteran. One of the lessons that I walked through with that is it wasn't just my experiences in the military that um, that caused my life to flip upside down, because everything causes it. You know, one thing leads to another. Childhood traumas can lead to that. Past life experiences can lead to that. Generational trauma can lead to that. It's all floating in there. It's not just that thing. I'm not saying that that's not a big deal, because it is, because I work with veterans myself, and I've seen combat veterans and what they've gone through, and they come into this group that I was part of, that I worked with personally, when I finally asked for help. And they walked me through it. And every week I meet veterans that go from this crushing place of feeling like they can't get out to this expansive, amazing, beautiful soul that they are, and move out into the world when they're done with the program, and they just create amazing things. So it is possible to do this. It's just being able to ask the right questions. So if you are a combat veteran, I'm going to throw this out there, and you are in need of a place that will help you walk through what you're going through, reach out to me, and let me know, and I can put you in touch with Fort Freedom. Or you can go look it up online, and you will be amazed at the difference. Now, I will say that there have been situations where people have come in and then they weren't quite ready at that moment, and they'd have to come back and recycle through. However, if you're willing, be willing, be courageous, be free. That's my mantra. Make the choice. Okay. All right. So I thank you for bringing the veteran piece up, because I almost forgot totally about that. I have a few more questions I want to ask you that I ask everybody when I talk to them. How do you see individual healing work contributing to the larger societal transformation?
It's necessary. It's necessary. Love and Light was a spiritual book. That's a channeled book that came before this one. It's for you to connect, but for us to connect. And as a society, we're collective, the oneness. And I think some of the harm that we're seeing in our society today, at least in the United States and in other countries as well, is that lack of disconnect. So when we're healing and our heart is open and the light connects with light. And there are many, many light workers out there in the world. And I'm just going to say, we need to get to know each other. So, come out of the woodwork, and I want that network.
That's what I've been saying for years. Thank you for saying that. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. All right. On that note, how do you define awakening?
How do I define awakening?
Mm-hmm.
For me, awakening occurred when I was able to put down my knapsack and allow the universe to work with me. I'm a person who had been on a fear foundation for the early part of my life. And for me to put down all of my things, that's scary. That's scary. I don't trust. But awakening to me is for my soul to sing, for me to have the joy among joy, that I can be who I am, and to also be there for you because that joy is coming through me. That is awakening for me.
Wow. But that's the thing. I mean, look at you. You're I can see the light radiating off of you. I mean, literally, I can see the light radiating off of you. I'm not going to say it's the room. I'm going to say it's you. But that's the thing. It's like when you do the work, this is what happens. When you connect with like-minded people, this is what happens. And as highly sensitives and empaths, there's only about 10% of the population, 8 to 10% of the population, that are highly sensitive and empathic. I mean, actual people, whether it's from trauma or gift, doesn't matter. You're in that space, right? And the thing about it is that when we come together and we bring our gifts together, it exponentially grows bigger than anything else in this world can do. I've seen it happen. I've seen when people get together how big things and how things shift and how things change. And, they talk about getting together and doing prayer or meditation or whatever, it shifts things. It just does that. So absolutely. So thank you for bringing that beautiful light of yours and awakening. And also, what do you believe soul divinity is?
Soul divinity. Well, for me, I know that I have a divine right, a divine grounding. So my soul divinity is occurring for me because of the healing, and I'm able to connect and walk in light in the world to meet people like you, to do the work that I'm doing, conservation, like all of these things came from healing. And my soul, who came here to do something, I think I'm actually doing it. I think that is my soul's calling.
Yeah, I think you are too. Absolutely. All right. So, how can people get in touch with you?
You can reach me on my website, lisaycollins.com. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook, Dr. Lisa. Instagram, Lisa Yvetta Collins. I'm trying TikTok, but I'm not a TikToker, but you can follow me there too. And then please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn as well. But anything that I could do to help you, I'd be happy to help you. And I'm here to serve and to continue to heal.
That's beautiful. And that's what we're all here to do. Yay. And also everything that Lisa just said, we'll have in the description below. So the links will be there for you to get to it, including all of the books she mentioned. This is going to be a lot of links on there on this one. And one more thing, Lisa, is there anything else that you would like to share before we wrap up?
There's one more thing I'd like to share is that if you are feeling lost or alone, or you're feeling like I'm not quite so sure, there will be a Truth of Trauma Summit coming up June 8th. And it's free, it's online. It will be myself, Kumu Ramsey, who is a Hawaiian practitioner and a very spiritual man. Cindy Dale, Anthony, J.W. Benson, like, please come and grab some resources for yourself. And you are not alone. And someone said this to me that I didn't like early on in my healing. If no one's told you they love you today, I love you. I was annoyed by it, but I'm just going to say it anyway.
Well, usually early on, we get annoyed by things like that.
Absolutely.
That's not true. You're full of crap. You're full of it. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, and if you could provide the link so I can add that.
I will. I will add that.
Well.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So looks like this is a wrap. Thank you, Lisa. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to have met you. And I love how I'm attracting people coming in for these conversations. I don't even like calling them interviews, these conversations that desperately, and I don't like using the word desperately either, get to happen because we need it. We need to bring this proof that there is a way to walk through this. And well, here we are.
We can do it. Here we are.
Here we are. If you
Here we are.
I think I can easily say for both of us, if you had met us 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we would not be talking about this.
No, we would not.
Right. So thank you so much for being here, Lisa. I appreciate you so much. And to all of the people in our audience, thank you for watching Awakening Soul Divinity. And I look forward to seeing you on the next go around. Peace.